if God were one of us. I can imagine God as a slob, sitting around, hasn't taken a shower in 4 to 5 days, probably hasn't shaved, is watching, hanging out with the Kardashians, eating a Wendy's. Because he puts it more on my level, don't you think, when God's on your level? I mean, we do the same thing with doctors, we always put them on this pedestal. But really, they're just human beings just like us. They really are. Anyway, can you turn that thing off now?
Sure.
I'm trying to entertain
I don't even
these
know how
people.
to do this.
Just throw it out the window, it works for me.
It's not even a phone call. It's just
Really?
I randomly started playing music.
Right. So obviously it has artificial intelligence. But anyway, in the beginning...
Sorry.
There you go. All right.
Sorry, Rob.
Hey, no problem, no problem. In the beginning, God told a joke. All right? Doctor is talking to his patient. You want to improve your love life? You need to get some exercise. Run 10 miles a day. 2 weeks later, the man called the doctor. The doctor asked, how's your love life since you've been running? He says, I don't know, 140 miles away. Here's one for all you Catholics. Here's one for all you Catholics. A drunk staggers into the Catholic church, enters a conventional booth, sits down but says nothing. The priest coughs a few times, get his attention, but the drunk continues to sit there. Finally, the priest pounds 3 times on the wall. The drunk mumbles, ain't no use knocking, there's no paper over on this side either. Oh. And finally, a child asks his father, how were people born, Daddy? So his father said, Adam and Eve made babies, then their babies became adults and made babies, and so on. The child then went to his mother, asked her the same question, and she told him, we were monkeys, then we evolved to become like we are now. The child ran back to his father crying and said, you lied to me. His father replied, no, your mom was talking about her side of the family. So, I bet you're thinking I'm going to do 20 minutes of stand-up. Not true. Not true.
No, let's do it.
No.
I want my money back then.
No. Just to put in a disclaimer, any resemblance between me and living persons is purely accidental. To quote Bill Cosby, I started out as a child. I've read that children laugh as much as 100 to 200 times a day. Compare that to a large majority of adults who get 0 to several laughs daily. That's all. Now, do you think it's because we spiritual folk tend to take ourselves too seriously? You think that's what it is? I mean, you talk about prayer meditation being serious because, why? Because God's serious. I mean, God's serious stuff. God's that guy up in the heavens, with the beard, the white hair. No? No, it's not that guy?
No.
It's the guy on the couch hanging out with the Kardashians,
That's
right?
right.
But still, it's serious stuff, see? There we go. I mean, when you go into...
Oh my God.
I know, it gets better, it gets better. It gets better. I mean, when you go into prayer, you don't start out by saying, so God, there were these 2 Irish guys, they walked out of a bar. Hey, it could happen. You don't say that, right? I mean, it's prayer and meditation. Because we're solemn and we're serious when it comes to prayer and meditation, because we're connecting with the divine. So there's no jokes, I mean, we're praying for ourselves, or we're praying for others, for what? A healing, or for prosperity, or to mend a broken relationship, or to buy a new car, or tickets to the Ice Capades gym, a cell phone that can make breakfast. These are the really transient things that we're praying for. This is serious stuff. And we meditate when we want to get into touch with the still small voice within, or our inner child in a quest for peace and personal transformation. But why don't we think about humor in the same way? Because humor is a really intimate thing. It really is. To be able to make somebody laugh is a precious and sacred thing. To me, it's a sacred path to be closer to God. Personal, intimate. Why can't humor transform us? Reverend James Martin, in his book Between Heaven and Mirth, says, there's a fundamental misunderstanding that says religion needs to be serious all the time, and gloomy, and dour. A lot of things about religious are serious. I mean, it's concerned about your salvation, the afterlife, suffering, those kinds of things. But I think we tend to focus so much on that to the exclusion of joy. And then he goes on to relate the story about St. Lawrence, who in the 3rd century, as he was being burned to death on a gridiron over hot coals, said, "Turn me over and take a bite, this side's done." True story, true story, true story. Oh, any of you communists out here? Any communists in the audience? All hail Marx and Lenin. I know, not everyone's a winner, folks. Not everyone's a winner.
Next slide.
Thank you. The mystic Teilhard de Chardin, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about him, said that the presence of joy is the most infallible sign of God. Now, when I think of humor, I think of unbridled joy, reckless abandon. I mean, when you're in the throes of laughter, it is transformational, okay? In fact, I will tell you that the esteemed health organization, the Mayo Clinic, says, research shows that a good laugh doesn't just lighten your load mentally, it actually induces physical changes in your body. Here's some examples. Laughter can stimulate many organs. Laughter enhances your intake of oxygen-rich air, stimulates your heart's lungs and muscles, and increases endorphins that are released by your brain. Laughter can activate and relieve your stress response. A rollicking laugh fires up, then cools down your stress response and increases your heart rate and blood pressure. And the result of that is a good, relaxed feeling. Laughter can soothe tension. Laughter can stimulate circulation and aid muscle relaxation, both of which can help reduce some of the physical symptoms of stress. Let me put that in biblical terms. Be ye transformed by laughing your keister off. Right? Okay. Bill's cringing. Don't worry, nothing. This is all on tape. I'm not going to say anything to offend anybody, unless they want to be offended. But we all like to be amused, don't we? We always like to be distracted. You know, we'll have our favorite TV shows, our favorite sitcoms, our favorite comedians. We might find humor in social media, you know, Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest, or by texting. I mean, I've seen some humorous texts that were written in one way and were not, you know, did not come out the way they expected it to. Sometimes I think that stuff's a little forced, but it does happen because spell check is not perfect. Now, as far as my life, I grew up on the Marx Brothers, W.C. Fields, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, Milton Berle, Johnny Carson. Yes, I am aging myself. And I added Monty Python to that group, and Benny Hill, and Rita Rudner, and Albert Brooks, and Paula Poundstone, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, and the list goes on. These folks are my aunts and uncles. These folks were my godfathers and my godmothers. They were my patron saints. And they got me through a lot of rough times growing up. They served me well in that regard. They got me through a motorcycle accident when I was a teenager. I had a serious accident, and I was dealing with the serious injuries of my girlfriend when I, at the time, had only gotten a broken leg. They also helped me deal with my mom's death when I was 13. I remember coming home, my mom was in the hospital, and the Marx Brothers movie, Horse Feathers, was on TV. So that kind of pacified me until we had gotten the word that my mom had passed. So, you know, it's a place to go to rejuvenate, just as much as prayer and meditation is a place to go to get spiritual upliftment. Because when you laugh, and when you're in the throes of laughter, you are totally transformed in another world. It also helped to have a sense of humor, especially if someone was looking to pick a fight with you. When I was a kid, I always got picked on as a kid. I was always getting, because I was a gawky kid. You know, I didn't have any muscles on me, not like I do now. I was also the last to be picked on a sports team. So humor helped me, especially Groucho Marx's one-liners. Groucho Marx had such a wit and such a way of delivering comedy. His one-liners really helped me, like, I got a good mind to join the club and beat you over the head with it. Or, how much do you want to stand at the wrong end of a shooting gallery? Or one of my favorites, you got the brains of a 4-year-old boy, and I bet he's glad to get rid of them. And one thing about Groucho, which I also resonate with, is that Groucho always went after authority figures, whether it was a professor, a dean of a college, or doctors or lawyers. He always went after authority figures because he wanted to just knock a little bit of that pompousness out of them. I think what he wanted to do was kind of make them human, you know? He wanted to make a human. I think we tend to lose our humanity in our day-to-day life because we get trampled upon with the news of the day, the bad news, or some sort of tragedy. And laughter and humor can rejuvenate that. It can reconnect you to God, and it can reconnect you to life. And to me, that's an important thing. I was always in and out of trouble in Catholic school because I was the class clown. You know, I loved to make people laugh. And when I was growing up in school, certainly in Catholic school for the first 5 years of that venture, I remember being, you know, I'd be in 4th grade and I'd screw up and they'd knock me down to 2nd grade just to be with a bunch of younger kids. You know, that was embarrassing. You know, stuff like that. Or or the nuns would always call on me and whack my hand or something. You know, that was the problem with nuns. Now back then, you can't do that now. Is there any teachers here? I mean, Marlene, you used to be a teacher. You can't hit kids nowadays, right? But back when I was growing up, they used a 2x4, you know? And so I got hit one day on the hand, and then they're complaining because I can't handwrite. And my mother says, well, no wonder he's trying to write with his left hand, you know? You can't, he's crippled. So, again, humor is a safe haven. It's a safe haven. And I think it should have the same respect as prayer and meditation. You know, I generally love to make people laugh. I did not choose a career as a comedian. And I appreciate other people's humor. Good humor. I mean, not everybody's a great humorist out there, but I can appreciate humor. And when I connect with somebody who's making me laugh, when the tears are rolling down in my eyes, I know that I'm in heaven. And I'll share a little story with you. Joanne and I Joanne, who's the Reverend, who's my partner, we tend to go to the chiropractor together. And at our chiropractor, we have to do warm-up exercises. And the warm-up exercises are on these chairs that look like really mangled office chairs. They have no back, but they're a way if you can do the exercise. So Joanne's doing the exercises, and I'm just not coordinated. I'm sorry, I can't dance, and I'm not coordinated on these chairs. So I'm doing these exercises, and she's watching me, and she's laughing her butt off. I mean, she's literally crying. And so I'm making comments, too. I'm saying, hey, can you guys get some new office furniture? You know, I'm making all these jokes. And to watch her laugh, you know how you laugh so hard where, like, tears are coming out? Or maybe, you know, your Coke that you're drinking is coming out of your nose. I mean, that's how hard she's laughing. And to me, when I get her to do that, I really feel, in more than any other way, as much as I love her, that I've connected. To see her laugh, there's just something there that I can't even describe. Laughter really, literally can raise our consciousness. Let me share a story, or let me share a song I'm not going to sing. Most of you remember Mary Poppins, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they just made a movie about the story about getting Travers to sell the rights to Mary Poppins to Walt Disney. But there's a song in the movie Mary Poppins called "I Love to Laugh."
That's great.
Okay, I wanted to show the clip, but I couldn't do it with our present technology. But in the song, Ed Wynn, who is this old-time vaudeville comedian, is singing the song, "I love to laugh, da, 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 da." And as he's singing, he's literally he's literally flying into the roof of this house, into the space of this house. Okay, and as the others join in, Dick Van Dyke, the kids, and Mary Poppins, as they all start laughing, they get raised up as well. And they're all joining him on that level. That speaks volumes. It speaks volumes to the power of laughter and how it could just change any situation. You know, it can really turn an argument around. And I'm not saying use humor to insult or hurt somebody. I'm saying use humor to deflect. Use humor to bridge that space between one another. The late George Carlin and Richard Pryor were social barometers, and some of my favorite comedians, both have left our world, but they've left a culture of humor that has, made us look at ourselves a little more introspectively. Of course, I think towards Carly, in the Carlin's career, he was getting to be just a curmudgeon old grandpa, but for the most part, Carlin and Pryor, and there are others, but Carlin and Pryor made us look at ourselves and started taking the things that we take for granted in our culture and turn them upside down. They both pointed out sometimes of how goofy we really are as a culture. Carlin just recently, or at least one of his last routines, went so far as to reduce the amount of commandments, logically, the 10 commandments, to 2 commandments. And I can't repeat all of them here because he does use some blue material. But he basically reduced it down to 2 commandments. It was basically, thou shalt always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie, and thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone unless they pray to a different invisible man than you. So, and Carlin, I don't think was, I'm not sure if he was atheist, I don't think he believed in God, but he certainly had some logic when it came to humor and just the crazy things that goes on in our culture. Now, that same line of thinking, there are comedians out there who are trying to bridge the gap of our racial divisiveness in this country and in our world, especially among the Muslim community. There was a movie I just watched, documentary called The Muslims Are Coming, and it was about a group of American Muslim stand-up comedians who traveled the country. Basically went to a lot of the states down south. They were in Utah, and they wanted to dispel some of the prejudices about being a Muslim. There was Iranian Americans, there was Iraqi Americans, there was some Jews in the comedy troupe, and it was absolutely hilarious. If you get a chance and watch it, but they actually did things like they'd sit out in the square, and they'd have signs that says "Hug a Muslim." And they'd just be walking around, hug a Muslim, and you'd be surprised people actually came up and hug them. They came up, or they'd have a table with, ask a Muslim a question. I mean, they did things like that just to break that wall, to knock down that barrier. Now, that's not to say that they didn't get a little flack in the meantime as well, but it really went to show that you can't always go by what you see in the news. You really got to go and talk to people. You really have to, because what happens is, when we got both sides at these ends screaming, and they're taking up all the airwaves and all that, we tend to believe that, and that's not the truth. The truth is, you need to talk to folks, and so Muslims Are Coming, I would highly recommend as a documentary, and it is funny. There's this one woman, her name is. She directed it. I think it's Nadine Fassad. She is funny. She's filthy, but she is funny. She's an Iranian comedian, and she is absolutely funny. I mean, these guys did it through stand-up comedy. If you can't reach people in laughter, then how can you do it? I mean, it's one thing to pray and meditate, but when you've got 2 people laughing at something, boy, that is kismet. And when you got people in an audience, in a movie watching a comedy, it's unbelievable. I mean, come on. When was the last time you went to a movie you actually laughed throughout the entire movie? I think the last movie I saw where I laughed the whole time, that was Airplane. They don't make movies like that anymore. I like non-stop silly laughter. But part of our own experience with laughter has to do with the ability to laugh at ourselves. When was the last time you got up, looked in the mirror, and actually laughed at yourself? Not to, you did?
This morning.
I mean, not to insult yourself, but really, look at, we gotta look at ourselves as being funny, I mean, I look at myself every day and say, boy, you are a funny guy. I'm surprised the mirror hasn't broke.
Right.
I mean, I'm a pretty clumsy guy, sometimes I can be forgetful, or sometimes I have a bad hair day. But, when you look in the mirror and have a laugh, you really do connect with that divine spark that is in you. At the entrance to a Hindu temple, there was a beggar always stretching out his hand, asking and pleading for alms. One day he stretched out both of his hands. A passerby asked him, "All these days you were stretching out only one hand. Why are you today stretching out 2 hands?" To which the beggar replied, "Praise God! Business was so good I opened another branch." Or here's some Zen humor for you. A student went to see his meditation teacher and said, "My situation's horrible. I feel so distracted most of the time, or my eggs leak, or I'm repeatedly falling asleep. It's terrible." Said the teacher matter-of-factly, "It will pass." A week later, the student returned to his teacher. "My meditation's wonderful. I feel so aware, so peaceful, so alive." The teacher told him, "It will pass." You know who Victor Borge is? Remember Victor Borge? Victor Borge said laughter is the shortest distance between two people. And I'll take that one step further. To me, the presence of humor is the most infallible sign of God. Now, in Unity, there wasn't a lot of the research I did on humor. I didn't find anything really that Unity had done. I didn't see anything. I'm sure that maybe individual ministers had done it, but there was nothing on the website that I could get. However, Unity co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, as you know, took their work very seriously. But they were also a couple of jokers. Let me relate a story from Charles. Charles was a natural storyteller, but he also had the discernment to recognize when his audience was getting restless. So once during a sermon, he stopped and addressed his audience. He said, "I don't mind you looking at your wristwatches, but when you look at them and then hold them to your ear to see if they're running, that is too much." And of course, Myrtle Fillmore, you know, the real, the love and the person who did the prayer work, Myrtle Fillmore, she also was funny. She, once during a Wednesday evening healing meeting with a full crowd, Charles, her husband, joyfully announced towards the end, "When this meeting is over, you're all invited to come over to our place for a bite to eat." To which Myrtle replied, "If you do, there had better be another expression of the miracle of the loaves and fishes." Oh yeah, Chuck and Myrtle, they were a swinging couple.
Oh, yeah, they sure were.
They weren't they? This is one of my favorite pictures.
Yes.
And there's many different versions of this, but I like Jesus laughing, because most of the ones that he's not laughing, probably because he's about ready to be crucified. I probably wouldn't be laughing either. But you got to look at this picture, and you got to wonder at the time. I mean, Jesus was a seditionist. He was trying to overthrow Rome because he was occupying their Jerusalem, and then he's dealing with lepers. He's dealing with sick people. He's trying to raise the dead. He's turning water into wine. He's feeding the masses with a couple cans of tuna and stale bread. So you got to ask yourself, what is so funny about Jesus? Here's what I came up with it. The apostles were known to be a bunch of jokers. So I'm figuring one night he's sleeping in Gethsemane, right? He's like this. So Peter comes over with a big glob of hummus, puts it in his right hand. Matthew comes over with a feather. Boom. That's what happened. Because they didn't have, I don't think they had shaving cream back then. I don't think. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Now, I mentioned earlier about, I'm running behind here. I mentioned earlier about some long-term, I see what tough crowd. I bought my son a bow and arrow kit for Christmas. He bought me a t-shirt with a bullseye. Hunter Adams. You know who Hunter Adams is? You probably better know him. No, he's better known as Patch Adams.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely a visionary. He uses humor in treating his patients. He said, "Remember laughing? Laughing enhances the blood flow to the body's extremities and improves cardiovascular function. Laughter releases endorphins and other natural mood-elevating and pain-killing chemicals, improves the transfer of oxygen and nutrients to internal organs. Laughter boosts the immune system and helps body fight off disease, cancer cells, as well as viral, bacterial, and other infections. Being happy is the best cure of all diseases." Now in Unity, are we not taught that every cell, every bone, every muscle, every tissue is infused with divine intelligence? So why can't laughter be part of that? All right? Your body knows exactly what it needs to do to survive. So laugh. Okay? Theologian Karl Barth said, "Laughter is the closest thing to the grace of God." And Presbyterian minister Conrad Beyer shares, The first and last word belong to God, and therefore not to death but to life, not to sorrow but joy, not to weeping but laughter. For surely it is God who has the last laugh. But I think George Burns said it best when he said, "The secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and have the two as close together as possible." So begin anew this week. Begin anew. Take the time to laugh this week. Find something, anything, and laugh. I mean, God laughed when you were born. Blessings.